Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. Thank you for being here today as we take a first look here on the channel at the about to be released Kamigawa Neon Dynasty set, and we do so from our unique budget perspective. We've got a bit of a long video today, doing things a little bit different, going a bit more in depth, not only into our plans for quick draft and opening packs, but also looking at those essential budget uncommon cards, looking at very nearly every card in the set from the budget perspective on those uncommons, and see what that can tell us about how we shape our collection and move forward as budget players. So stay tuned. But before we get into all that, what do you say we do the awkward thing and promote the channel? Allow me to take this opportunity to invite you to subscribe to the Planeswalker Stronghold for all your new player, free-to-play, budget, and midweek Magic needs. As you can see, we aren't one of these huge channels that fluctuates tons of subscribers on any given day and doesn't even notice. Around here, you matter. Just like these fine folks here, who recently subscribed to the channel and chose to make their subscription public. You see, the YouTube algorithm seems to think that budget arena content doesn't matter. And while I know I can't change that, I think we can. So click the subscribe button to support the channel, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss on an upload. And build a more efficient collection along the way. Now, what were we talking about? Oh, right. Now, I'm sure most of you will recall that the release of, or the introduction of the alchemy concept really changed the way we needed to think about building our collection, as it essentially added 4 additional sets each year. I believe that the correct number of drafts that we should be doing for each new set is 9. But I think my decision to start opening packs immediately was a bit premature. I think it made it a little bit harder for us to get a complete common and uncommon play set, which is very essential for budget players, as well as maybe lower the overall quality of the rares that we opened. So for the Kamigawa set, I want to strongly recommend that you plan on doing 9 quick drafts for the set. In addition, I think we need to hold our packs and not open them until those 9 quick drafts are completed. That should give us a much better chance at not only completing our common and uncommon play sets once we have opened all of our packs, but also leave us money for purchase, or I should say gold, to purchase alchemy packs for the Kamigawa release, and give us a healthier selection of rares and higher quality, higher quality mythics. That should give us an overall best opportunity for our collection. So now let's take a few minutes and talk about the cards themselves. And one of the places that I like to start is with the gold signpost uncommons that are going to be the formation of your draft decks. Because we all know that basically we draft to create a collection, and then those draft archetypes become our budget decks. So let's go through and look at those signpost uncommons. The first up is the Asari Captain, and speaking of this, just know that I am sorry about any pronunciation errors. I'm a white guy in America, and there's probably some things here that I don't properly know how to pronounce with so much Asian influence in the names. So sorry about that right off the bat. But with our captain here, we get 3 colorless and Boros for a 4/3 haste. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each samurai warrior you control. I think this is pretty good. I think there is a good shot that this samurai slash warrior deck is going to be better than the straight up warrior deck or the warrior equipment deck. I think we're probably going to get some sort of hybrid concoction of all three archetypes, and there's a good shot this is going to be pretty decent with so much card pool even at the budget level. So we're going to have to watch that. I think this is one of those that has a good opportunity. Boros is not really on our budget archetype anywhere outside of maybe Alchemy, but it may find a new foothold in Standard and spread to some other areas. Next up, we've got the Colossal Sky Turtle. For 7 mana, 4 colorless, 2 green, 1 blue, you can have a 6/5 enchantment creature turtle. That will have flying and ward 2. So pretty beefy if you get up to 7 mana. I think the real appeal of this card is the 2 channel abilities. One basically for 2 colorless and a green lets you bring back a card, any card, from your graveyard to your hand. The second one for 1 colorless and a blue, discard Colossal Turtle, return target creature to its owner's hand. So it basically gives you a bounce effect, either as a tempo piece, using it on one of your opponent's creatures, or to save one of your own creatures and have the potential to recast it at a later time. I think this card is good. Obviously, it's pointing towards a green, blue channel matters deck. The thing is, I'm really looking for some sort of card that is a payoff, that like procs every time you channel a card, and I haven't seen that yet. So my feeling is that we're missing a little bit on that. I did see something in the artifacts, and we'll talk about those later, that procs every time you discard a card, another uncommon that may fit into that deck and maybe make it a little bit better. But we're just going to have to see how that plays out, to be honest. Our Mechanaut here, artifact creature, Goblin Artificer, 2/2 flying for, that's not Simic, Is it colors blue-red. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. It's a great little utility spell. Obviously, blue-red is going to be an Artifacts Matters deck. I'm not sure how strong it's going to be. Frankly, Is It, from a budget perspective, has been a little bit weak. Obviously, Is It Dragons and Is It Epiphany has been running rampant all over Standard until very, very recently. But those were all very mythic dependent. So I'm just not sure where we're going on this from a budget perspective. There may be a 3-color deck here because artifacts are kind of all over the place from a significant standpoint. Let's see, up next here we got Gloom Shrieker for 1 black and a green, a 2/1 with Menace. When it enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If it would die, exile it instead. I mean, it's a solid creature, but a 2/1 with Menace for 3 feels a little underpowered. I'm not sure how I feel about this as a deck archetype. I think our baseline deck of black-green counters is potentially better, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not feeling this one. Go ahead, internet, and prove me wrong. Let's see here. Next up, we've got Invigorating Hot Springs. Boy, that sounds really good as I sit here in my office in February to a slight chill. 1 colorless, a red and a green. It's an enchantment, so this is just going to scream for us to build a deck around it. It enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Modified creatures you control have haste, and remove a +1 counter from this card. Put a counter on target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery and only once each turn. So the Fun Police did definitely hit up on this card, but this fits into any Gruul deck that you're currently running, whether that is potentially werewolves, or more likely the red-green landfall deck that came with your new player experience. I think it's solid. I think it fits into a lot of places. I don't think you're ever going to be sorry that you have copies of this card. I don't think this gives birth to a new deck, but it may find slots in others. Now, getting into something that I think is going to be a new deck, our Jukai Naturalist, enchantment creature human monk for Selesnya. That's 1 green and 1 white. It's a 2/2 with lifelink, so pretty good stats right off the bat. Enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less. This is going to be pretty solid. Obviously, the Selesnya deck here is going to be some sort of enchantments matters. I think it's going to be a relevant archetype in Standard, if not this year, definitely next year. And really, it has a good shot of being relevant, or at least kind of all over the place here for this year, because right now our best green-white Selesnya deck is the Selesnya Life Gain, and frankly, 9 times out of 10, mono-white Life Gain is better, so this has a good shot to be relevant. Enchantments are all over this set. This is definitely going to be an archetype that has potential, not only for Standard, but for Alchemy, as well as giving you some legs into Historic, where Enchantress, a green-based Enchantress deck, has been a thing for a while, and this is a good time to consider building Enchantress in Historic this year and next year. So we'll be looking at that pretty solidly. Next up, we've got our Oni Cult Anvil, a Rakdos artifact. Whenever one or more artifacts you control leaves the battlefield during your turn, create a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token. This ability triggers only once per turn. I hate that last line I just read. I wish this would proc more. It's been a long time since we've had a nice aristocrat sacking for value deck. This could be decent. Its other ability is tap, sacrifice an artifact. It deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. So it's kind of an aristocrat deck all in one card. And don't forget, our current budget for black-red is the black-red treasures deck. And treasure tokens are, in fact, an artifact. And sacking your treasure token to use it forces it to leave the battlefield and will proc this once per turn. So there's some potential here for some crossover shenanigans that we'll be watching. Nothing has really jumped to my mind just yet, but isn't that the way life is? Apparently last up here, we've got Silver Fur Master for Dimir, black and blue, a 2/2 rat ninja creature with ninjutsu, also for the same casting cost. Ninjutsu abilities you activate cost 1 less to activate. Other ninjas and rogue creatures you control get +1/+1. So this has the ability to be a lord for that ninjutsu rogue deck that we've all been dreaming of for years. This might be a real thing now. We still have a lot of really good rogues in Standard, and having a lord at uncommon might be what makes that deck worthwhile. Unfortunately, the mill effect of the old rogues and the ninjutsu of the new ninjas, at least in my mind, are not lining up real well. So we'll just have to see if someone can figure out how to break that and make it worthwhile, or leaning into one aspect or the other to make a solid deck and a win condition. So is that everything? Has everything been placed on here? Let's see. That's 1, and two. Oh no, we didn't talk about these here. We just skipped right over to the Oni cult here. We did not talk about Naomi, Pillar of Order, a 3, a white and a black 4/4 legendary creature, human advisor. That's right, we're starting to see some non-blue advisors. Watch out. Whenever this card enters the battlefield or attacks, get both procs, the 1/8/7 proc and the attack. If you control an artifact and an enchantment, so you got to have both, create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance. So the fact that that procs, if you meet both conditions, both when it enters the battlefield and when it attacks, may make this good. Building a deck around a 5 mana legendary creature, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but we will have to see how that goes. That might get there. And I think the other card that we missed here is Prodigy Prototype. A white and a blue artifact creature, or excuse me, artifact vehicle 3/4. Whenever one or more vehicles you control attacks, create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature crews vehicles as though it had a power of 2 greater. So that 1/1 is going to crew as though it were a 3/1. And its power is not increased for any other reason, at least so far. Maybe they'll do something in the Brothers' War to make that more interesting. I don't know. There's definitely a blue base vehicle theme going on in this, headed up by Tezzeret. Whether that's going to be any good or not remains to be seen. Blue-white has been kind of disappointing from a budget perspective this year. And there's definitely some blue-white control decks that might be more what you're wanting to do in those colors. Hard to say. We're going to have to watch and see what that one does. But let me double check my totals here. That is 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so that is all of our gold signpost uncommons and the decks, and what I think may be happening with those decks and how that may affect the existing color combination from a budget perspective. All right, in any given set, the second most budget relevant set of uncommons tends to be the colorless artifact, well, primarily artifact cards. And there's some ones here that I think are definitely worth looking at. Circuit Mender, 3 for a 2/3 artifact creature insect. This is basically like our rare Solemn Simulacrum, aka Sad Robot. We still love you, brother. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. When it leaves the battlefield, you draw a card. Try blinking this. It'll get interesting. Very, very fun. Because it does not have to go to the graveyard. It just has to leave the battlefield. Some broken things, that's probably going to be something they address in Alchemy. So don't get too attached to that potential abuse. Next up is Containment Construct. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. So all of those cards that let you channel it, that is a discard effect. So by using this construct in any kind of channel, whether it's blue, green, or not, any sort of channel deck, you can pull double duty on those. You can discard your channel land card and play it that turn as a land card. Potentially broken. Not sure quite what we're going to do with that yet, but it has some potential. High speed hover bike, its ability to tap down a creature as it enters the battlefield, and the fact that it has flash could be really, really good. It's a 2/2, cruise for 1, and has flying. This may only be a limited card. It may only go in the blue base vehicle matters deck, but it's got some potential here, and I certainly think it's something that is worth drafting and adding to your collection. Network Terminal is going to be one of those color fixing anytime in draft you want to go to a 3-color deck. This is pretty darn good. You tap it for a mana of any color, or you tap 1 mana itself and an untapped artifact you control to draw a card, then discard a card. So it's basically tap 3 cards to loot. That has potential. Patchwork Automation is another one of those. It's a 2-1, or excuse me, a 2 mana 1/1, and whenever you cast an artifact spell, put a +1 counter on Patchwork Automation. There's a good shot there's going to be, if not a colorless, maybe a monocolor Artifacts Matter. It may be blue, it may not, I'm not sure. But this is one of those uncommons that's definitely going to fit into this, and if they can't remove this quickly, it is going to get out of control. Runaway Trash Bot, a 0/4 for 3 trample. It gets +1/+0 for each artifact and enchantment card you control. This obviously is going to go in either of those Selesnya Enchantments Matters or the Is It or any other version of Artifacts Matter. And, well, it's a runaway trash bot. It's hilarious. Play it when you get the chance. Live a little. The Guide Bot is a 4 mana 2/1, so not the best stats in the world. It enters with a +1/+1 counter that you put on a target creature you control. 4 tap, draw a card. This ability costs 1 less for each activated. Let me try that again. 4 mana and tap, draw a card. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each modified creature you control. Modified creatures are going to be all over the place. I have a feeling this is just going to be a limited card, but again, if there's going to be a colorless artifact deck, this is probably going to be in it. Last up, Walking Skyscraper, 8 mana for an 8/8 with Trample. It costs 1 less to cast for each modified creature you control, so it's affinity for modified creatures. Walking Skyscraper has hexproof as long as it's untapped. I think this whole modify thing is kind of an unspoken nod, at least as far as I'm aware, to the Phyrexia undertone of this set, and I would not be surprised for that modify aspect to really come together with the Brothers of War set coming out, or maybe even a future set beyond that. It's a +1/+1 token, equipment. These are themes we see a lot, but when we look through the gold cards, if you recall, we did not really see a Modified Creatures Matter card, at least not that I'm remembering. So it might be coming at a later date. Next up, let's talk about those uncommon lands, and it's a short list, but we've got Mech Hangar. This is your Vehicles Matter land. If you're planning on building that deck or think it's going to be competitive, you're going to want these lands. Similarly, Roadside Reliquary. This is particularly going to be advantageous in limited, if you're building any kind of artifact and or enchantment matters deck. And I'm not sure how strong the pair is going to be in standard, which is going to have a lot to do with how important this card is in standard, etc. I don't know that this is necessarily worth running in an Artifacts Matter or an Enchantment Matter. I'm kind of feeling like it needs to be both, because 2 mana and tapping a land, so basically 3 mana to draw a card is not great. 3 mana to draw 2 cards is pretty great. Last up on the uncommon lands, we've got Secluded Courtyard. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You can tap it for colorless or tap it for 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells of the chosen creature type or activate abilities of creature or creature card of the chosen type. That's pretty awesome. This is better than what we have at Uncommon and Historic for all of your tribal decks. Definitely make sure you get a full play set of that. It's going to matter. And I do believe that is our last Uncommon on land. So there we go. And now let's take a few minutes and go through the Uncommons at each of the colors. Wizards, why don't I have the ability to filter the preview cards by commonality when you give me the ability to do it by color, multicolor artifacts, lands, sagas, and all cards. Why can't I do it by commonality? But anyway, let's start with Banishing Slash, an extremely versatile removal card. It's a little hard to cast or splash at the double white. And if you can proc having both an artifact and an enchantment, the fact that it creates a token for you after removing a problem from the board has the potential to be busted. We will have to see how that goes. Blade of Blizzard Katsune, a Fox Ninja. Two things to say about this. I'm not sure white ninjas are where we want to be. Sorry, Chris Farley. Anyway, big procs if you comment down below and get that joke. But a 2/2 double strike for 3 has the potential to find its way into a lot of decks, even if they don't care about ninjutsu. Next up, we've got Vin Diesel, or you may better recognize this card by its title, Born to Drive. And that's exactly what it is. This is, as long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1 for each creature and vehicle you control. So it's almost like All That Glitters, but for creatures and vehicles, which could get dumb in that blue-white Vehicles Matter deck. It also channels to create 2 pilot creature tokens that are piloting at power 2 greater than what they really are, aka 3. Why don't they just say that? I don't know. I guess it's because if you have a +1/+1 effect on it, they could crew for 4. There we go. I just solved my own problem. Quit bitching, buddy. Let's move on. Okay, next up we got Shrines. Anytime they print Shrines, it ends up being a good budget deck. Anytime you've got an option to draft Shrines or get your hands on those, I highly recommend it. It's more than likely going to be a budget deck of choice next year, as well as give you some legs in Historic. It will cost you some uncommon wild cards, but it may very well be worth it for you. Next up, we got Hotshot Mechanic, Vin Diesel #2, or I guess this is like that ADH guy that was in the movie that, well, anyway. Yeah, go see the movie. It's great, kids. A 2/1 for 1 is pretty good, even if you don't care about vehicles or ever want to crew using this guy. Still pretty good. Imperial Recovery Unit. I have not read this card. It's 2 and a white, artifact vehicle, 3/4 stats. Whenever it attacks, return target creature card or vehicle card with mana 2 or less from the graveyard to your hand. Holy crap, that could be really, really good. It crews for 2. I'd say that makes the cut in any, particularly in limited, any Vehicle Matters deck that is using white. Let's see here. What else we got going on in the uncommons? Narika Yamakaze, the Poet. I think this is the Twins card that we've got going on. A 3/2 with Vigilance for 2 and a white. Whenever a Samurai or Warrior you control attacks alone, you may cast target enchantment card from your graveyard this turn. That has a lot of potential, but that's going to come down to how good the enchantments are. Don't forget Teleportation Portal, I believe is an enchantment. So that could end up being busted if you set up some sort of stupid reoccurring combo like that artifact that we talked about that was kind of like our sad robot buddy. Set up a teleportation portal on that. They get rid of teleportation portal. You use this to bring it back. It has some busted aspects. Maybe even as a mono white deck. We'll have to see. Selfless Samurai, this is an indestructible effect that white has been missing for almost 15 minutes or so. I'm not sure how I feel about that being back in standard, particularly with mono white basically just having to be nerfed a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. Skyblessed Samurai, 6, colorless mana and a white for a 4/4 flyer, but it essentially has affinity for enchantments, which could be very, very relevant. I'm still thinking you're going to end up paying at least 3 mana for this, even in the late game. But a 4/4 flyer for 3 isn't terrible. So yeah, there you go. Touch of the Spirit Realm, an enchantment. Ooh, look at that. White enchantments, who'd have thought? When this enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature until the Spirit Realm leaves play. It has a channel ability as well. So it's removal, not bad. When you were young, a 3 colorless, 1 white instant, up to 2 target creatures get +2/+2 until end of turn. If you control an artifact and an enchantment, note you got to hit both. Those creatures also gain lifelink until end of turn. So it's a nice overrun effect if limited in its scope because it only hits 2 creatures. But that is going to finish some games in limited one way or another. So that's white. All right, let's go through blue, and I'm going to try and go a little bit more quickly here because I realize otherwise I'm going to have a 2-hour video here. Acquisition Octopus is an equipment that lets you draw cards when you hit for combat damage. That's going to be good for a mono blue tempo deck that I think is finally coming together for standard and will give you legs in historic. Reality Anchor, it's a tutor. Tutors almost always end up being good, particularly at the uncommon level. Awaken Awareness, it's an enchantment aura, puts counters on, so it triggers Modify, but it turns the base power into 1/1, so it can also potentially be used as removal. We'll see how that works. Covert Technician, Ninjutsu, deals combat damage. You may put an artifact from your hand onto the battlefield. That has the potential to be busted. Let's see what else. Essence Capture is another card that has gotten reprinted and is going to be relevant. You're going to want copies of that. It's already a usable card in Historic. Uncommons that make tokens generally pretty good. Not bad. And Sentinel, a 6/6 vehicle that crews for 3 and only costs 4 mana, is pretty darn good, particularly in that blue-white or maybe just base blue vehicles matter. We talked about shrines. Get them. They're going to be good. Let's see here. Mobilizer Mech, another one of those cards that is going to be pretty silly good in any kind of vehicles matter deck. And don't be fooled. There's definitely one coming. Someone's going to break that. Prosperous Thief is a Ninjutsu card, creates treasures, could be good. I'm not sure that's the crossover anyone really wants to see. Reality Heist, affinity for artifacts. Yep, that's the thing. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, boys and girls. That is a deep dive. Wow, that is just going to be so good in a narrow grouping of decks. Replication Specialist, making token copies is generally good, particularly when you can do it at the uncommon level. And let's see what else we got here. Thirst of Knowledge is another reprint. I'm not sure this is a reprint anyone wanted, but they tend to use Tezzeret art on it, and Tezzeret's in the set. So there we go. That's blue. All right, and black, once again, moving a bit more quickly. Enormous Energy Blade. Isn't this the card we always wanted for Magic? It's Final Fantasy meets Jedis, and I think that's awesome. I don't even care what it does. I just think it's awesome. Gravelighter, on the other hand, is a card that I care what it does. For 3 mana, you get a 2/2 flyer, which is decent stats in and of itself, particularly in limited. But when it enters the battlefield, draw a card if a creature died this turn. So that's a good flexible option. And if a creature didn't die this turn, each player sacrifices a creature. So it's a very versatile either card draw or removal sort of option. I think this card has a lot of legs and is going to be one of the more versatile pieces that we see in a lot of mono black decks. Leech Gauntlet, wow, give an equipment that gives lifelink. Those tend to be really, really good. The rig configure cost of 4, a little less. So malicious malfunction, an uncommon board sweeper. It gives -2/-2 until end of turn. If a creature would die this turn, exile it instead. That's pretty sick. Mono black control could be pretty darn good just because of that card, particularly at a budget level. The Prowler Ninjutsu enters the battlefield. Target creature you control gains Death Touch and Lifelink. Yeah, that's going to make the Dimir ninjutsu decks pretty darn good in and of itself. What else we got going on here in black that might be worth talking about? Unforgiven won a 2/3 with Menace. When it attacks, return target creature card with mana value X or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, clearly I've never seen this card before. Where X is the number of modified creatures you control. Wow, okay, so Resurrection on that, but needs modified creatures in order to hit it. Yeah, I'm not sure how much black is going to care about modified creatures, but in limited, that is probably better than I think it is. And next up, let's talk about those red uncommons. Bronze Plate Boar is an equipment that gives another creature trample. Giving a creature trample is a nice way to finish a game, but typically it's the green creatures you want to give trample to, not red, so I'm not sure how much impact we're really going to have there. The first single color card that I think might give birth to a deck is the Dragonspark Reactor. Because when you sacrifice it, it deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target player, and that much damage to up to 1 target creature. So it is both face and removal at the same time. Of course, you put charge counters on it every time it or another artifact enters the battlefield. Red has some strong artifacts. There's some good possibilities there. This might be a mono red gotcha style deck. We'll have to see how that goes. We've talked about shrines. They're still good. You still want to get them. That's how it is. Let's see here. Our other twin. Oh, no, excuse me. That is not the other twin. When a warrior you control attacks alone, you may cast target artifact from your graveyard this turn. Actually, yeah, that is the other twin. I am all over the place here. A 3/3 with trample, pretty good. Building a deck around a legendary creature, I don't know how I feel about it, but it definitely has a potential home in that Boros Samurai Matter attack alone deck. Rabbit Battery, if we build a bombardment style deck, either this year or next year, this is almost sure to be in it. A 1/1 for 1 red with haste, and it has the ability to give any post turn 1 creature +1/+1 in haste as well for a simple reconfigure cost of a single red. Yeah, this is going to be really good. I definitely suggest grabbing those up. Reinforcement Ronin is a 2/2 for haste for 1. But it bounces back to your hand and potentially lets you channel to draw a card. So it could hold the board to hold back those early attackers, then bounce back for late game card draw. Versatility could be useful. Excuse me. Instant Seismic Wave, 2 damage to any target, and 1 damage to each a non-artifact creature target opponent controls. It could be removal. It could be a minor board wipe. Look for this against your goblin decks. It might be impactful. Equipment Monkey at common, I like it. Goblin Artificer, I was really disappointed with the goblins overall in this set. I really wanted something that was going to do something for our goblin deck, but nothing really is. Sniper is the closest thing that comes anywhere near being acceptable for our goblin deck, and putting in reach or having it deal 2 damage to any target is pretty narrow to say the least. I would probably pull my copies of, oh god, what is it? The sorcery speed, 3 damage for 2, and replace them with this, but that's something I'm going to have to test and see if it's actually relevant or not. And ladies and gentlemen, that is red. All right, in green, we're going to start by talking about Generous Visitor. Whenever you cast an enchantment, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Doesn't even have to be this creature. This is the 1-drop that the Enchantress deck always really wanted, and it's going to be a go-to card for years in Historic. Definitely pick it up. Shrines, I may have mentioned this, but they're good. Get them. Wisdom, I'm not loving this enchant card. Prove me wrong, internet. I will be happy to admit I was wrong. Turtle Ninjas, just saying, gotta have that. Let's see here, Roaring Earth. This almost goes really nicely in your landfall deck. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to run this, particularly with the channel ability. Seems good. Snake Druid, a mana source. I like it. If you can modify it, it gets better. Seems good. Spinning Wheel Kick. I love the art. I love the name. I'm not sure I love the card. It seems like an overcosted fight spell. We'll see. Story Weave, on the other hand, is 2 modes with +1/+1 counters, or lore counters for Sagas. We're going to figure out a way potentially to abuse this. We're getting ready to talk about Sagas here in a second, and we'll look for opportunities to abuse Story Weaver. Because don't forget, by doing that at instant speed, oftentimes you're creating a creature and putting a +1/+1 counter, or no, excuse me, 2 +1/+1 counters on potentially that enchantment creature, and maybe blowing out an attack staff or something like that. It's got a lot of options. The Windspanner Cuff to give a creature reach and 1/4, a very defensive card. I kind of like it. Its reconfigure cost often at these uncommons with that 4 reconfigure cost makes it questionable, particularly for having to move it around. But it has a possibility. In a world where Blue-White Skies is not a deck, I'm a little less impressed by this card. And as promised, let's wrap up the card review with the uncommon Sagas. There is a lot of Sagas in this set, and I'm going to be honest, it's a little more than I can really process from a budget perspective. So I'm just going to go over some of the standouts to me. Chico's Reign of Truth. I probably said that like I was Hispanic. The fact that the first 2 chapters on this basically gives a creature all that glitters until end of turn is pretty darn good. And then it transforms into a creature with onboard all that glitters. In the right deck, that's going to be a stupid, stupid card. Life of Umezawa. For those of you who played Kamigawa years ago, you may recognize this. Chapters 1 and 2 basically let you pick a mode of Jite. This card is going to be good in any kind of black control deck. And then it becomes a 2/3 that lets you pay life and cast sorceries and instant spells a little bit cheaper. Pretty cool. I think that has legs and is going to do something. Long Reach of Night. Any saga that forces your opponents to sack a creature or discard a card is pretty good, and this does it in the first 2 chapters. We're going to see that in that mono black control deck that is coming together. Kumono Faces. 1 damage. Your next creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter. It's 1 mana, so like this has a lot of the same attributes that our bombardment style decks, our goblins deck, where you want to hit starting from very turn 1. The fact that this does that 1 damage like a raging goblin would without the messiness of an actual creature Of course, it's not repeatable. It can't swing again on turn 2, but it does make your turn 2 creature bigger. I'd say this is probably going to find a place in any mono red budget deck that we look at next year, but we'll have to see ultimately how that plays out. Many journeys. Playing an additional land seems good. Life gain is good. Whether this actually finds a home or not, I'm not sure. Also, searching up 2 basic forests, pretty good. Put a target land card from your graveyard on top of your library, seems good. Then it transforms into a creature that cares how many lands you control. It's very synergistic. There might even be a deck that gets born around this that ultimately ramps into something ridiculous at the top and the end. We'll have to see. I think it has potential, and that's basically our uncommon sagas. If this, let's see here, our greens are right here. So really, I think the Reach of Skyward is the card that most potentially benefits from the green uncommon of jumping it ahead, because you can put a land card from your graveyard on top of your library at instant speed, then flip this enchantment, bring it into play with equal to the number of lands you control, plus put 2 1/1 counters on it. Like that could be a really big blowout creature in a theoretical green ramp deck going on. We're going to have to play with that here on the channel. Be sure to tune in for that. And as I'm sure you've noticed, we did a pretty different budget perspective video here, going much more in depth. It was far longer than my usual budget perspective video, but believe it or not, was actually less time consuming to produce. So do me a favor and comment down below if you have an opinion about which style of video you like better. The Kamigawa Neon Dynasty that you just watched, or something earlier like our Crimson Vow budget perspective. Just throw me a comment down below if you have an opinion on it, and we'll take that into account before we make our next budget perspective video. Thanks, as always. All right, so with all that having been said, don't forget, smash the like button like Hulk would. And of course, comment and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And one last thing, myself, I'm coming to you from America, and I have noticed that about 1/3 of my viewership is coming from the US, and about 1/3 is coming from various countries. And there's about 1/3 of my viewership that is just getting lumped into other. So to let me know you got to the end of the video, throw me a comment down in there and let me know where you are watching from.